Hey, what's up? And welcome to the Fit Focus Forum. So, if we don't know each other yet, my name is Russell Smith. I am the founder of Statham Fitness and creator of the Modified Macro Method. So, we do these Fit Focus Forums twice a month so that we can share information about your journey in either weight loss, building muscle, or just generally improving your overall health and fitness. So, today we're going to talk about why building muscle is a marathon and fat loss can be a sprint. Okay. So raise your hand if you've ever felt like your body operates on some kind of glitch where fat loss is agonizingly slow, but building muscle feels like trying to grow a tree overnight. The internet often makes it look easy to get shredded quickly and put on muscle instantly. Influencers with their 6 week shred challenges and gain 20 pounds of muscle fast promises often leave us scratching our heads when our bodies don't follow suit. But the reality is, our bodies work on fundamentally different timelines for these two goals. So today, we're going to expose the real glitch: why muscle building is truly a marathon, demanding patience and strategy, and why fat loss, when done right, can actually be a focused sprint. So stop fighting your biology, stop falling for the hype, and start working with your body for lasting results. So, what we're going to cover today is why building visible muscle is a long, slow game of consistency and why that is absolutely okay. Why fat loss can initially be much quicker, and also why that might slow down. The psychological glitch that makes us think the opposite, leading to overall frustration with the process, and also how to strategically approach both goals for lasting results, especially for men over 30. Guys, today we're going to have real talk. There's going to be no bullshit. It's just going to be science backed clarity. So, first, we're going to talk about the science of muscle growth, which I like to call a construction project. So, muscle hypertrophy, what is it? It sounds fancy, right? Simply put, it's the process where your muscle cells get bigger. Think of your muscles like tiny little houses. When you lift weights, especially challenging ones, you create these things called microscopic tears in your muscle fibers. Now, don't panic. This sounds bad, but it's not. It's like tiny cracks in the foundation of your house after a small tremor. So what happens now is the incredibleness of your body takes over. When you rest, especially in deep sleep, and provide the right building blocks, it sends out its repair crew, which is your proteins. And these proteins work to patch up those tiny tears. But here's the magic: it doesn't just patch them up, it actually adds more material, making those fibers bigger and stronger than before. And this is how your muscles adapt and grow. So this whole process takes energy. For this repair and building process to happen efficiently, your body needs extra energy. And we call this process an anabolic process. Anabolic, put simply, just means building up. This is why you often hear about needing a caloric surplus for muscle gain. A caloric surplus means that you're eating slightly more calories than your body uses in a day. So you want to think about this like providing enough bricks, enough wood, and enough concrete for construction of your house to really expand those muscle houses. So trying to build a skyscraper with just a handful of bricks, that's going to be extremely difficult, especially if you're a natural lifter, meaning that you don't use performance enhancing drugs. Now, our bodies have a natural genetic speed limit for how fast they can build new muscle tissue. You can't force it to go faster than it's designed to. This is for a naturally training man, of course, and this typically has a few ranges. Okay, so the first range is for a beginner, and a beginner is like the first year of working out. So maybe 1 to 2 pounds of actual muscle per month. Okay, this is your newbie gains phase where the progress feels the fastest. But that's it, guys. Just about 1 to 2 pounds of muscle per month if you're not using performance enhancing drugs. Now you've got the intermediate lifter. This is year 2 or 3 of your fitness journey where you've been consistently going to the gym and working out. It tends to slow down at this point. So you can expect more like zero point 0.5 to 1 pound of muscle per month. I know, right? It just keeps getting better. Once your body adapts to something, it generally reacts to it slower. And then you have your advanced lifter, anybody that's been lifting for approximately 3 years or more. This is even slower. It's around 0.25 to a half a pound or less per month. I know those are numbers that nobody wants to hear. But I want to be clear. We're talking about the amount of muscle that your body is building. All right. You can gain a few pounds a week when you're in a muscle building phase, but inevitably, no matter how clean you're eating, you're always going to put on some body fat. I personally prefer lean bulks if that's the goal, to eat as clean as possible, right? So that you can put on the lean amount of body fat, the least, excuse me, amount of body fat as possible in the process. That also means that the weight that you put on is going to happen slower than if you did what we call a dirty bulk, where you're just eating foods that are not as clean, right? Just basically eating whatever you have in front of you. Now, a dirty bulk doesn't have to mean that you're eating McDonald's every day, but if you're doing a dirty bulk, then you're probably eating things that have a higher fat content, meats that have a higher fat content. You're not paying as close to attention of the quality of carbohydrates and fats that you're putting into your system as well. All right. So you need high quality materials to make this happen. We're talking about proteins here. Okay. You also need plenty of fuel for the construction workers to build that house. And these are the calories. Okay. So you've got the protein, which is your materials, and you've got the calories, which are the fuel for the construction to happen. You also need detailed blueprints, right? So you need a smart, progressive training plan. And then most importantly, you got to have time, right? You need time for the concrete to set and the structure to solidify. All right. This is what translates over into recovery and sleep, especially deep sleep. Guys, I can't stress this enough. Deep sleep is where most of the recovery happens. This is where most of the muscle building happens. So if you're not getting 7 hours of sleep, you're probably not getting into enough deep sleep to really get the most out of your training process. Okay. I know that there are so many things that track our sleep these days. So it's a lot easier to keep track of if we're getting enough sleep and if we're getting enough deep sleep. And you don't have to spend a lot of money on them either. I know Fitbits are usually really affordable. You can up-level yourself by buying an Apple Watch or one of those rings. I can't remember what they're called right now. My husband has one. But they also have even beds that track your sleep as well. We actually have what's called an 8 sleep bed. And this 8 sleep bed tracks our sleep. It knows when we fall asleep. It can tell us our sleep patterns, how much deep sleep we're getting, how much light sleep we're getting, and then how much REM sleep we're getting as well. Now, I want to tell you that none of these are 100% accurate, but it's really great to have this information to understand if you do need to change your sleep patterns by maybe going to bed a little bit earlier or not drinking liquids 2 hours before bed so you don't get up in the middle of the night and interrupt your deep sleep, or even not eating 3 hours before bed so that you can have a more restful sleep. Since we're on the topic, that's actually called the 3-2-1 method, right? 3 hours before sleep, it's 3 hours before sleep, you don't eat, 2 hours before sleep, you don't drink. And then 1 hour before sleep, you turn off all your electronics because that blue and that white light can activate all your cortisol and make your body think that it's daytime, which makes it incredibly difficult not just to fall asleep, but to have quality sleep as well. All right. Just think about it like this. You can't just wish a fully furnished mansion into existence overnight. You need time and you need to give it all of the materials and tools and energy and blueprints that you need to make it happen. So this process can feel really slow. And this is where the psychological part comes in. Okay. So let's talk about muscle tissue. Muscle tissue is denser than fat. So 1 pound of muscle takes up much less space than 1 pound of fat. So gaining even a few pounds of muscle might not look as dramatic on the scale or visually as losing the same amount of body fat. So let's say that again. Gaining muscle is not going to look the same on the scale or in the mirror as losing the same amount of body fat. Okay. Now, also your initial gains when you're putting on muscle, when you start lifting or increase your carbs, can often be water and glycogen. Okay. These are stored carbs in the muscle. This can inflate perceived early progress. So a lot of people who use creatine when they're building muscle, it increases their body's water weight. Okay. And this water is held in the muscle cells, which helps it produce more energy. But at the same time, it makes you look bigger at the beginning. It also makes the number on the scale go up faster. But as soon as you cut that creatine out, you're going to lose some of that water and the scale number is going to go down. And what you see in the mirror is going to look different. I did an entire Fit Focus forum on supplements, so I'm not going to dig into creatine too much, but you can find that Fit Focus forum on my YouTube page. So, too many influencers imply that there's rapid, massive muscle gains. And when they do, they're often showing newbie gains as, something that's typical, or subtly implying steroid use, or maybe, talking about the rapid muscle gain and not sharing with you that they are using performance enhancing drugs, or as we like to call them, PEDs. So this sets a completely unrealistic expectation for natural lifters. You're comparing your real life natural progression to someone else's highlight reel or their enhanced reality. And that's what I like to call Instagram all the time. Instagram is everyone's highlight reel, right? Most of the time, people are not showing you the real them, right? They're showing you the best lighting, they're showing you how they look on their best day, and they are giving you the best things about themselves, right? I really love it when an influencer or someone on the internet is comfortable enough to just share some of their challenges, some of their difficulties, and some of their flaws, right? But unfortunately, it's too far and few between. And listen, I'm guilty of that as well. I share most of my highlight reels, right? But I do my best every once in a while to throw in something that I'm struggling with or that I feel is unflattering to myself, right? Because we are all the same. We're all human, and none of us is perfect. So I want you to ask yourself if you've ever felt like you've lifted heavy for months, but you've barely seen a difference, right? Think about that. What was your biggest frustration with muscle growth? Well, now that we've talked about putting on muscle and how that can be a really slow process, let's talk about the science of fat loss. All right. So, what is it? Fat loss is reducing stored body fat. And this is what we call a catabolic process. Catabolic generally just means breaking down. So, your body is literally breaking down stored energy or fat to use for fuel. The fundamental rule of fat loss is creating a caloric deficit. This means you consistently consume fewer calories than your body burns in a day. Now, when you do this, your body has no choice but to tap into its stored energy reserves, which is your body fat. So think of it like drawing money from your savings account when your checking account runs low. Okay. But the question is now, where does the fat go? All right. So here's a quick lesson on biology. When your body burns fat for energy, it converts those fat molecules into other compounds, primarily carbon dioxide and water. So you literally breathe out much of the fat and excrete the rest as water. So yes, you literally breathe out your fat. This is all part of the process of your body making ATP, or adenosine triphosphate. I always get tongue tied when I say that word. This is the molecule that your body uses as energy to power every function in your body. Most functions in your body, if not all of them, revolve around the creation and destruction of ATP. Just a little science lesson on the side there. So while muscle gain is limited, fat loss can be relatively quick, especially in the beginning. So, the initial fat loss drop on week 1 and 2, which we'll call the whoosh, is often rapid, and it's largely due to glycogen depletion and associated water loss. So when you reduce your carbs, your body uses up its stored glycogen, carbohydrate reserves, right? Glycogen holds a lot of water. So when it goes, the water goes with it. Now, this can be extremely satisfying at the beginning of a weight loss phase, right? You lose like 3 to 7 pounds or more on the scale, and it's a really great motivator. But then you have the after the initial whoosh, right? But this is where you get a safe and sustainable rate for actual fat loss. And it's typically 1 to 2 pounds of pure fat per week for most individuals that are in a moderate deficit. This means about 4 to 8 pounds a month is very achievable. Okay, this is a healthy amount of weight loss. And as I say with all of our clients here at the Modified Macro Method, what we're going for is a permanent solution, right? So slow and steady wins the race absolutely applies here when it comes to fat loss. So sometimes weight loss can actually feel faster, right? So let's talk about the psychology of that. When you see rapid scale changes, you see the number on the scale drop more rapidly than visible muscle gain, which gives immediate positive feedback. Okay. Losing fat often leads to quicker more noticeable visual changes. Your clothes fit better and definition appears. But then we're also bombarded with extreme 6 week shreds that often involve unsustainable methods, right? Many people chase the fastest fat loss possible, leading to crash diets. And this is the psychology thing coming in again, right? We have to get comfortable with the fact that fat loss takes time, right? Even though it can happen faster than muscle gain, we want to do it in a way where we're going to be able to keep it off. That's why crash diets don't work. Like, crash diets, these can also lead to metabolic damage and rebound weight gain, like we were just talking about. And this really perpetuates the cycle of frustration and reinforces the false idea that fat loss is hard. It's hard when you don't do it sustainably. And I want to clarify that for a moment. I was actually talking to somebody the other day, and we were talking about how gaining muscle is much harder than burning fat, right? But I sat there and I thought about that for a moment. And each one of these things can feel as difficult for one person as it does for the other, right? One person's struggle doesn't negate another person's struggle. For some people, it's incredibly hard to lose fat because it's very difficult for them to give up some of the unhealthy habits they've spent a lifetime developing. And then on the other end of that, someone that's really good at losing body fat gets very frustrated when it's difficult for them to put on muscle because they don't have the tools or they're not used to having the tools that they need to put that muscle on. So when we say that losing fat is easier than building muscle, we're really just talking about the scientific part of that. Psychologically, I know that both of these things can be equally difficult for people. All right. And each one of us is different. Okay. Just because something's easy for somebody doesn't mean it's easy for somebody else. So I'm curious, who's experienced that initial rapid weight loss only for it to slow down? What's the fastest you've seen the scale move? And what was your reaction when it inevitably slowed down? Go ahead and leave a comment and let us know. So the next thing I want to talk about is understanding the cycle, right? Building season, shred season, but not like a bodybuilder. So the most effective approach for sustainable body composition change involves strategic cycles. Think of it like phases, all right? You have a controlled fat loss phase or a deficit phase, right? This is your quote unquote sprint phase. Here, the primary goal is fat loss. You operate in a caloric deficit, right? And you eat high protein, you have consistent resistance training, and you aim to preserve as much muscle as possible in the process. Then you're either maintaining or building muscle after that, okay? So your marathon phase is after your fat loss sprint. It's crucial to bring your calories back up to maintenance or even a slight surplus. Now, I've also done a Fit Focus forum on this about what a reverse diet is and why they are important. That is also in my YouTube channel, so please give it a watch. But this allows your body to recover, rebuild, optimize hormones, and potentially add muscle without the stress of a deficit, okay? A lot of the times we find some of our clients have come into the program and have already been in a deficit or even an extreme deficit for an extensive amount of time, which has caused their metabolism to slow down to meet them where they're at. And it's really affected their hormones' ability to function properly as well. That's why with some clients, we actually start with step 2 so that we can get them back up to their maintenance calories so we can actually initiate a change when we eventually do bring them down into a deficit. This can be psychologically even harder. I want to lose body fat. Why am I not losing body fat? I've been eating a small amount of calories for so long. Well, that might be the reason why you're not losing body fat, okay? Again, we've done a Fit Focus forum on this very topic, so please give it a watch and leave me some comments and let me know what you think. So you can't really effectively do both at once, all right? This is the body recomposition unicorn. Now, I do use the term body recomposition with people because it can be said in a positive way, all right? While body recomposition, gaining muscle and losing body fat simultaneously is technically possible, it's extremely rare for anyone beyond complete beginners, all right? Those returning after a long break might have some success in this, or individuals using PEDs or performance-enhancing drugs. For most of us, trying to do both at the same time leads to mediocre results in both areas, and then it just ends up leading to a lot more frustration. So it's very important that you focus on one primary goal at a time. But I do call what we do body recomposition because I have people that come to me and that are skinny fat, right? They come into the program and, they feel like they're skinny. They're at a weight where they're happy at that weight. They like what they see on the scale, but they're not happy with what they see in the mirror because they don't have any muscle tone. This might be a reverse situation where we actually do caloric increase first. Even though they probably have some body fat on their body, we build some muscle. We build some muscle so that we can increase their metabolism. Then we can bring them into a deficit again and cut off any of that body fat. We'll bring them back to the same weight, but that weight will now be lean muscle rather than fat. And that's where the skinny fat term comes from. So when I'm talking about body recomposition, if you ever hear me say that, that's what I'm talking about. As we age, our metabolism, which is the process by which your body converts what you eat and drink into energy, it naturally slows down slightly. Our hormones, which are chemical messengers that affect how your cells and your organs function, including metabolism, muscle growth, they can shift. A strategic cyclical approach is more crucial than ever to work with your changing biology. You want to work with it and not against it. So random cutting and aimless bulking becomes even more frustrating and inefficient. So it's even more important to go in with a solid plan where you know that what you're doing is going to affect your body in the proper way, right? So here's your blueprint for success. First of all, you want to define your primary goal. Before you start, ask yourself, is my absolute top priority fat loss right now, or is it muscle gain? You can focus on one at a time, and this clarity is going to be your compass, and it's going to make you a lot more successful in this process overall. We are looking at the long term here, all right? We want to make sure that this is a permanent solution that we do correctly, that teaches the habits we need to hold on to this for a lifetime, okay? So for the fat loss, you want to focus on consistent, moderate caloric deficit. Aim for 300 to 500 calories. If we have someone that comes into the program that's significantly overweight, we might start them out at 700 and then raise them up a little bit to 500 under. But this is enough to signal fat loss without crashing your energy or your metabolism. You also want to prioritize high protein, right? Critical for muscle preservation while in a deficit. So you want to think lean meats, poultry, fish, eggs, low-fat Greek yogurt, protein powders, and I prefer whey protein isolates if you are not a vegetarian. If you are a vegetarian, they have great protein powders out there. And if you're somebody who is not a vegan, they also make egg protein, which I have heard is very good. I've never tried it myself, but it's very clean. And the only product in it is eggs. All right. And yes, it's still a powder. Continue resistance training, even in the fat loss phase. You got to lift weights. All right. This tells your body to hold on to that precious muscle as you lose fat. And you want to avoid cannibalizing muscle in this process by doing too much cardio. All right. When we do too much cardio, then your body is ultimately going to cannibalize muscle on top of burning fat with it. Okay. So focus mostly on strength training with a little bit of cardio on the side once, no more than twice a week, so that you can continue to take care of your heart health as well. Cardiovascular health is important, but you don't need to do cardio to lose weight. Accept the initial drop, celebrate it, right? Celebrate the whoosh, but understand that it's steady 1 to 2 pounds a week for real fat loss. Now, when we're talking about the muscle gain or the marathon, first, we're going to focus on progressive overload in the gym. So you want to consistently be challenging yourself and your muscles with slightly heavier weights, more reps, or better form over time. This is the ultimate driver of muscle growth. We've done a Fit Focus forum on progressive overload. I highly, highly recommend giving that one a watch. It is also on the YouTube channel. Give us a comment on that Fit Focus forum if you watched it and it helped you out. Most people think that the only way to increase intensity in a workout is to add weight, and that is just not true. There are many other ways that you can increase your overload. Make sure that you're getting adequate protein and you're in a slight caloric surplus. So you want to make sure you're eating enough protein. Around 1 gram per pound of body weight is what we usually prescribe for our clients. And make sure you have a small controlled surplus, somewhere between 200 to 300, sometimes maybe 500 calories over maintenance, depending on how your metabolism is functioning and what your ultimate goals are. So this will fuel the building process without any excessive fat gain. And guys, be patient. Remember the speed limit. Gains are slow, but incredibly consistent if you stick with the plan. So let's embrace the cycles, right? The art of periodization is what we call it. Don't stay in a deep deficit forever. It's unsustainable for your body and your mind. Be strategic about your maintenance and reverse diet phases. Gradually increase calories back up after a deficit. That's really critical for your metabolic health, your hormone balance, and your psychological well-being. Prioritize recovery and sleep. Okay. This is for your muscle growth. This is also for your fat growth, or excuse me, fat loss. Slip of the tongue there. And remember that deep sleep really is important. So if you have the ability to track your sleep with a wearable or a bed that you sleep on like we do, take a look at it. And if you're not getting those deep sleep cycles, start to figure out how you can improve your sleep. Maybe starting possibly with the 3-2-1 method. So in the comments, I want to hear what's one thing you're going to change about your approach now that you understand this glitch. Will you focus on patient muscle building, strategic fat loss, or embracing the cycle? So I want you to drop your biggest takeaway in the comments. So the real glitch here in the matrix isn't that your body is broken. It's that our expectations have been warped by social media, misleading headlines, and a misunderstanding of basic human biology. Muscle building is a beautiful, slow craft, a testament to consistency and patience. Fat loss, when done smart and strategically, can be efficient and incredibly empowering. You don't need extreme diets that make you miserable or insane workout splits that burn you out. You don't need to try to hack your way to results. What you need is to understand your body, work with its natural processes, and be patient with the right things. So let's be clear. You can absolutely achieve the lean, confident, muscular physique you desire, and you can maintain it for the long run. But it's not about the shortcuts or the magic pills or the promised overnight miracles. It's about patience for the muscle building marathon, precision for the fat loss sprint, and consistent action that builds long lasting habits forever. All right. Guys, thank you very much for paying attention today. If you have any questions, please leave them in the comments. We'll be happy to not only answer your questions, but hop on a call with you if you want to talk about how any of this could fit into your fitness journey. Please drop the word "my turn" in the comments if you'd like us to reach out to you and schedule a free consultation where we'll just kind of figure out what your goals are, what you're struggling with, and how we can get you where you need to be. All right. Have a great week, guys. Thank you.